Hello, welcome to another Storytime Quickies of the Chinese Myths and Folktales. We started this series up for the Lunar New Year, so we're going to be doing this for the next month or two or so. So I hope you guys enjoy some of these. Make sure to check out some of the other playlists that we have in the YouTube channel, which is the Tales of Horror and the Grimm's Fairy Tales. There's a lot of really cool stories in there. Go check those out. For today's tale, though, we are going to be doing the Taoist Priest of Lao-Shan. So, grab your blankies, grab your snacks. Was that? Thought I had like a cut. That was weird. I showed this and it looked like I had a cut on my finger. Was that just me? Also, I don't have a booger in my nose. Okay, it's one of my nose hairs. I haven't cut them. Just a heads up if you see it. All right, here we go. Here we go. The Taoist priest of Lao-Shan. There lived in our village a Mr. Wang, the seventh son in an old family. This gentleman had a penchant for the Taoist religion, and hearing that a Lao-Shan there were plenty of immortals, shouldered his knapsack and went off for a tour thither. Ascending a peak of the mountain, he reached a secluded monastery where he found a priest sitting on a rush mat with long hair flowing over his neck and a pleasant expression on his face. Making a low bow, Wang addressed him thus: "Mysterious indeed is the doctrine. I pray you, sir, instruct me therein." "Delicately nurtured and wanting in energy as you are," replied the priest, "I fear you could not support the fatigue." "Try me," said Wang. So when the disciples, who were very many in number, collected together at dusk, Wang joined them in making audience, audience, audiences, audiences, obeisance. What the hell is this word? Obeisance. Obeisance? Obeisance. What the hell is that word? Obeisance. Okay. Obeisance. So Wang joined them in making obeisance to the priests and remained with them in the monastery. Very early next morning, the priest summoned Wang and, giving him a hatchet, sent him out with the others to cut firewood. Wang respectfully obeyed, continuing to work for over a month until his hands and feet were so swollen and blistered that he secretly meditated during home. One evening, when he came back, he found two strangers sitting, drinking with his master. It being after dark and no lamp or candles having been brought in, the old priest took some scissors and cut out a circular piece of paper like a mirror, which he proceeded to stick against a wall. Immediately, it became a dazzling moon, by the light of which you could have seen a hair or a beard of corn. The disciples all came crowding round to wait upon them, but one of the strangers said, "On a festive occasion like this, we ought all to enjoy ourselves together." Accordingly, he took a kettle of wine from the table and presented it to the disciples, bidding them drink each his fill. Whereupon our friend Wang began to wonder how 7 or 8 of them could all be served out of a single kettle. The disciples too rushed about in search of cups, each struggling to get the first drink for fear the wine should be exhausted. Nevertheless, all the candidates failed to empty the kettle, at which they were very much astonished, when suddenly one of the strangers said, "You have given us a fine, bright moon, but it's dull work drinking by ourselves. Why not call Chang Ingo to join us?" He then seized a chopstick and threw it into the moon, whereupon a lovely girl stepped forth from its beams. At first, she was only a foot high, but only reaching the ground lengthened to the ordinary size of women. She had a slender waist and a beautiful neck, and went most gracefully through the red garment figure. When this was finished, she sang the following words: ye fairies, I'm coming back soon. Too lonely and cold is my home in the moon. Her voice was clear and well sustained, ringing like the notes of a flageolet. And when she had concluded her song, she pirouetted around and jumped up on the table, where, with every eye fixed in astonishment upon her, she once more became a chopstick. The three friends laughed loudly, and one of them said, "We are very jolly tonight, but I've hardly room for any more wine. Will you drink a parting glass with me in the palace of the moon?" They then took up the table and walked into the moon, where they could be seen drinking so plainly that their eyebrows and beards appeared like reflections in a looking glass. By and by the moon became obscured, and when the disciples brought a lighted candle, they found the priest sitting in the dark alone. The viands, however, were still upon the table, and the mirror like piece of paper on the wall. "Have you all had enough to drink?" asked the priest, to which they answered that they had. "In that case," he said, "you had better get to bed, so as not to behind, be behindhand with your wood cutting in the morning." So they all went off, and among them Wang, who was delighted at what he had seen, and thought no more of returning home. But after a time, he could not stand it any longer, and as the priest taught him no magical arts, he determined not to wait, but went to him and said, "Sir, I traveled many long miles for the benefit of your instruction. If you will not teach me the secret of immortality, let me at any rate learn some trifling trick, and thus soothe my craving for a knowledge of your art. I have now been here 2 or 3 months, doing nothing but chop firewood out in the morning and back at night, work to which I was never accustomed in my own home." "Did I not tell you," replied the priest, "that you would never support the fatigue? Tomorrow I will start you on your way home." "Sir," said Wang, "I've worked for you a long time. Teach me some small art, that my coming here may not have been wholly in vain." "What art?" asked the priest. "Well," asked Wang, "I've noticed that whenever you walk about anywhere, walls and so on are no obstacle to you. Teach me this, and I'll be satisfied." The priest laughingly assented, and taught Wang a formula which he bade him recite. When he had done so, he told him to walk through the wall, but Wang, seeing the wall in front of him, didn't like to walk at it. As, however, the priest bade him try, he walked quietly up to it and was then stopped. The priest here called out, "Don't go slowly. Put your head down and rush at it." So Wang stepped back a few paces and went at it full speed, and the wall yielded to him as he passed. In a moment he found himself outside. Delighted at this, he went in to thank the priest, who told him to be careful in the use of his power, or otherwise there would be no response, handing him at the same time some money for his expenses on the way. When Wang got home, he went about bragging of his Taoist friend and contempt for walls in general, but as his wife disbelieved his story, he set about going through the performance as before. Stepping back from the wall, he rushed at it full speed with his head down, but coming in contact with the hard bricks, finished up in a heap on the floor. His wife picked him up and found he had a bump on his forehead as big as a large egg, at which she roared with laughter. But Wang was overwhelmed with rage and shame and cursed the old priest for his base ingratitude. And that concludes the tale of the Taoist priest of Lao-Shan. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. What a odd little tale, right? This one doesn't seem to have much morality to it, other than the fact that this guy is going to this priest to try and learn magics, and the priest essentially is telling him that cannot handle learning it, which is kind of funny because by the end of this, it turns out to be true that he can't actually endure it. I'm not sure if that's actually supposed to be a lesson for people that try to covet like learning something from Taoist priests back in the day, or if it was like a lesson that they had to learn in some way. Really interesting. I don't know what that falls into, or if it's either a myth or a folk tale, but it seems to be more of like a folk tale than anything, right? It seems to be something that's like meant to scare somebody from like going to the temples just to learn these secrets, you know. Um, from my understanding, people that go to these temples to learn from these priests are essentially giving up massive amounts uh, of their life to learn these practices. I think one interesting thing is I remember watching a streamer who's a therapist on Twitch, who talks about his experiences of going to these temples as well. Uh, Oh, what did I join into? Oh, hey, how's it going, Hoshino Kirby? We're just doing a story time reading of Chinese myths and folktales. And we're about to move into a reading of The Count of Monte Cristo afterwards for the last chapter. And then after that, we're going to be getting into some Doki Doki literature. Um, but I remember the guy, the streamer, talking about his experiences of trying to go to a temple, and how the monks essentially told him that he was not prepared or ready to practice because he was coming to them essentially without a life. You know, was already he had already given up everything to go and to these temples, and I think from the story he said, apparently the monk told him to go back to university, get a job, and build a life. And then if he wanted to give that up afterwards, then he was willing to teach him after that. Because if you're willing to give that up, that's when you are really committed to the practice. Instead of I think he referred to the process of like he was running away from his problems rather than trying to learn a lesson in some way, which I found that very fascinating when I heard that story. It's there's so many lessons in that, and I think that this story tonight actually kind of touches into that a little bit. uh but that concludes today's story time reading for this one. If you are watching from YouTube, make sure you hit that like, subscribe down below. There's going to be some boxes that are going to be popping up at the end of the video for the Tales of Horror and the Grimm's Fairy Tales. There's some more, and if you're watching on Twitch, there should be some links down below in the bio for the YouTube channels and everything else. Go check those out. There's a lot of really cool stories down over there. I'll catch you on the next reading. Later.